For this lecture, we're going to take a little bit more of a look at the reality of oligopolies. Now, obviously, they weren't, as we presented them before, it was a simplification. Now, of course, you can take game theory and complicate it a lot more, but you don't have to know that level for economics, for AP economics. But there are certain things about the reality of oligopolies that you do have to keep in mind. What are factors that limit tacit collusion? Because we did say that that's not illegal. Well, as you have larger and larger numbers, it is more and more difficult to maintain a tacit collusion outcome. Because as you have more people, they're more motivated to cheat. They're more motivated to try to get away some of the market share by reducing their prices and increasing their output. It also limits tacit collusion if you have complex products and pricing schemes. So if you think of the complicated way that cable bundles its channels and its other products, that makes it a lot more difficult to actually tacitly collude, because then you have to look at um, every other business within that oligopoly, and they have to be able to match that. So these are things that happen that make it difficult. You have a few others. You have differences in interests. Some firms don't care about your tacit collusion, and they really don't care. It's unaffected. Um, and the bargaining power of buyers. So one of the biggest examples of this is Walmart. So the buyer themselves has a bargaining power where they can force a producer to bid in at a lower price. So now you no longer have the producers trying to tacitly collude because they have to appease the purchaser. Um, so it is about that competitive retail environment and the power of the purchaser as opposed to the supplier. Now, in some cases, you can use product differentiation in order to try to move yourself um, out of a tacit collusion outcome. You can try advertising. It's about trying to convince your buyers that your products are different from the other producers, that your product is better than the other producers, and that will result in a higher price. Um, if you're able to demonstrate that on such a level. Um, it does it actually have to be better? No, it doesn't. But does it help? Absolutely. Um, a good example of this is actually headphones. So Beats by Dre, Beats headphones are pretty expensive in comparison, but are they better than other headphones that are similar in style? In many cases, no. You can find actually better sounding headphones for a lot cheaper. Um, Now, there's other things like Bose headphones, for instance. They have uh, some of the best quality headphones you can find. So their high price tag is a bit more understandable. But is the difference really that much that it makes up for the price? Probably not for most people, unless you're an audiophile. Um, so that's product differentiation. We'll talk more about it when we get to monopolistic competition. If your firm is a price leader, that's one that sort of starts the tacit agreement. So the firm that raises its price is a signal to everybody else that says, hey, we're going to do this, come along with us. And that sort of starts the tacit collusion. In non-price competition, that is when firms compete without lowering prices, without necessarily product differentiation attempts. So if they have longer warranties, hours in stores, reward programs, things like that, that's non-price competition, all done to try to, wiggle their way into having a little bit more market share than somebody else. Now, the realities of the oligopoly is that they're much more common than perfect competition or monopoly. Perfect competition doesn't really exist, and monopolies exist in rare cases, usually energy companies or things of that sort. Um, but they're still vaguely rare, but they are very impactful. on the consumer market. Um, each market does behave differently, and that's why we're not going to graph it out because it's a very individualized graph. Um, and essentially, what you do is you use perfect competition and monopoly in order to gauge the behavior of oligopolies. Are they not cooperating and do they have diluted market share? Well, then they're going to act more like a perfect competitor. Are they colluding to set up a cartel price? Well, then they're going to act like a monopoly. So it's about using those two sides of the spectrum as goalposts to demonstrate what oligopolies actually behave like.